Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandra.
And I'm Hem Korsoro, and on the show today, in signs of a discord between the two, in a tense meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has clearly told Israel that Palestinians must be allowed to return to their homes in Gaza. Now, details of this meet from the Israeli Prime Minister's office yet to be disclosed. Israel till now it's enjoyed complete backing of the United States. Will we see a change in this approach? We'll explore that on the show today.
Also on the show, as per reports, a secret meeting between Ukraine and allies was held in Saudi Arabia, and this happened last month. Now, this is an effort to try and gather support for peace talks with Russia. Of course, we will be getting you all the updates right here on World DNA.
Also on the show, we'll be joined by our correspondent Susan Tehrani, who will be getting us all the details and updates from New York. Stay tuned for that.
All right, viewers, let's get you started. Let's look at the headlines we're tracking for you at this hour first.
In Ecuador, masked men waving guns and explosives stormed a TV station during a live broadcast as the president issued a decree declaring that the South American country had entered an internal armed conflict.
Today, Jordan's King Abdullah II will host Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas for talks on what the royal palace says are dangerous developments in war-torn Gaza.
Top US diplomat Antony Blinken tells Israel that the toll on Gazan civilians caused by its war against Hamas was far too high, urging his ally to alleviate their suffering.
Donald Trump warns of bedlam in the United States if he is put on trial, following an appeals court hearing that appeared to lean towards rejecting his claim of presidential immunity.
The company which launched a US lunar lander says it has no chance of making a soft landing on the moon due to a fuel leak, further complicating NASA's plans to return astronauts to the lunar surface.
Australia chased down a 148-run target with 8 balls to spare as they defeat India by 7 wickets to clinch the 3-match T20I series 2-1.
We'll have to think about a few things. The team she fought back from that.
Now, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken shared some tough words with top Israeli officials on Tuesday.
Well, this is as he made his 5th crisis visit to the nation since the war broke out with militant group Hamas, amidst mounting pressure on the Biden administration to prevent the rising death toll in Gaza and the war from spilling over to the larger West Asian region. The top US diplomat urged ally Israel to make quote-unquote hard decisions and made a clear call to the Israeli government to reduce civilian harm. Listen to this.
We know that facing an enemy that embeds itself among civilians, who hides in and fires from schools, from hospitals, makes this incredibly challenging. But the daily toll on civilians in Gaza, particularly on children, is far too high. In today's meetings, I was also crystal clear. Palestinian civilians must be able to return home as soon as conditions allow. They must not be pressed to leave Gaza.
Now, these remarks were made during a press conference in Tel Aviv, which Netanyahu did not attend, while the Israeli Prime Minister's office also did not release a readout after the long meeting with the top US official, as it generally does. The move signals that the talks were not easy this time, though Blinken reaffirmed the United States unwavering support for Israel and rejected speculations of an immediate ceasefire, he did make some of his strongest direct remarks.
And Israel must stop taking steps that undercut Palestinians' ability to govern themselves effectively. Extremist settler violence carried out with impunity, settlement expansion, demolitions, evictions, all make it harder, not easier, for Israel to achieve lasting peace and security.
Israel has so far ruled out calls to allow the internationally recognized Palestinian Authority to govern both Gaza and the West Bank. Blinken, who visited Saudi Arabia, UAE and Qatar prior to his stop in Israel, said that Arab leaders are ready to live with and integrate Israel in the region in a way that everyone feels secure. These words signal that Arab-Israeli normalization talks might not be off the table. However, Blinken added that only through a regional approach that includes a pathway to a Palestinian state, this goal could be achieved.
While tense talks were ongoing in Tel Aviv, many protesters took to the streets calling for a ceasefire in Gaza to allow for the release of the hostages. Out of 250 hostages that Hamas took on the 7th of October, Israel says 132 of them remain captive, including at least 25 believed to have been killed.
35 years old.
Now for more on this, we're being joined by Charles Kupchan, Senior Fellow at the Council of Foreign Relations and former Special Assistant to the President. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA, sir.
Sure, good to be with you.
Now, sir, to begin with, of course, till now we've seen United States fully backing Israel. These talks that have happened, there hasn't been a readout by the Israeli Prime Minister's office yet. This is a sign of some sort of a discord between the two with regards to how the situation is panning out in Gaza. The United States has finally asked Israel to stop causing additional harm to civilians in Gaza, especially children. We also heard President Joe Biden say that they've been quietly working with Israel to have them significantly move out of Gaza. What's your take on this, and how do you see the situation unfolding going forward?
Well, there's no question that behind the scenes, the conversations taking place, U.S. officials, including President Biden, and top Israeli officials have not been easy. And I think there are several areas where there is considerable distance between the views of the U.S. government and the views of the Israeli government. One is the prosecution of the war in Gaza, where the U.S. is urging Israel to take a more surgical approach to limit the loss of civilian life and to get more humanitarian assistance in, more food, more fuel, more medicine. A second issue is the north, where I think some in the Israeli government would like to use military force to push Hezbollah further north into Lebanon, away from Israel's border. I think the United States wants to prevent an escalation in the north. And then the third big issue is what we call the day after. What will Gaza look like once the dust settles? Who will govern Gaza? The U.S. is pushing to bring the Palestinian Authority in to try to keep the area under the purview of Palestinians. I think Israel has talked about getting Gazans to leave and is not interested in bringing the Palestinian Authority in and working toward a future two-state solution. These are big differences between the two parties.
Mr. Kupchan, I also wanted to get your thoughts on this. Now, it's Blinken's fifth visit to Israel since October 7th. It's his fourth West Asian tour. What has changed now, or I would say what has compelled him to now take this kind of a tone with Israel, to asking them that they must stop? Was it not necessary to say this earlier? And children have been dying in Gaza since the first week of the war. Now, of course, we've heard Blinken saying that the death toll of the children is also a big concern. But it was always a concern. What has caused that change in stance now?
Well, you know, the U.S. has been telling Israel from the very beginning, we stand with you, but don't overdo it. When Biden went to Tel Aviv not long after the war began, he said to Netanyahu, don't make the same mistakes that we made after 9/11. Don't act out of anger. And now that we've seen this war go on for multiple months, now that we've seen the death toll in Gaza go over 20,000, including women and children, that message has become more urgent. And I think we haven't yet gotten to a point where the United States is willing to twist arms, to withhold aid, for example, if Israel doesn't begin to change its strategy. But right now, it does appear that Israel is listening and changing. It is withdrawing troops from the north of Gaza. It is talking about getting more humanitarian assistance in. So I think the conversation, the tough talk coming from Washington is making a difference on Israeli strategy.
In fact, sir, I was just going to come to this. What sort of a strategy are we talking about here? What would that even entail?
As far as we can tell, we're seeing a reduction in troop numbers in the north to focus on the south. Some Gazans are actually returning from their evacuation sites in the south to the north. It may be that over time, the fighting in the north dies down because Israel deems that it has largely dismantled Hamas's military capability in that area. It has yet to apprehend the key leadership. As far as we know, there are many Hamas fighters, many Hamas weapons in tunnels underneath southern Gaza. So the fighting will likely continue to a large extent in the south. When do we begin to pivot to a rebuild, reconstruct, talk about the future of Gaza? Don't know. But my guess is that the fighting will continue for at least another month before we see the conversation begin to focus on post-war reconstruction and governance.
Another month, and here's hoping that's the end of it, or at the earliest, if not till then. That was Mr. Charles Kupchan joining us on A World DNA from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for joining in, sir.
Pleasure. Good night.
Now, while the International Court of Justice probes South Africa's genocide case against Israel, the Hague-based International Criminal Court has now confirmed that it is also investigating the targeted killing of journalists.
Well, in the ongoing Israel-Gaza war, there have been several journalists who have died, and of course that has now brought up this topic as well. Now, the ICC will be hearing the case based on complaints filed by the media advocacy group Reporters Without Borders in November last year. The NGO has made allegations of war crimes over the targeted killing of journalists who were covering the war. Now, it is important to note that the ICC has jurisdiction over individuals and states accused of the crime of genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and the crime of aggression. Meanwhile, the International Court of Justice acts as a world court. It decides in accordance with international law disputes of a legal nature that are submitted to it by states.
Now, according to the American Group Committee to Protect Journalists, at least 79 journalists and media professionals have so far been killed in targeted airstrikes since the war broke out. Most of them are Palestinians.
Amid all the alleged incidents of war crimes against journalists, two cases in particular made headlines since the 7th of October. The first such incident that came under the spotlight was the death of Reuters journalist Issam Abdallah. Abdullah was a Lebanese citizen who was killed by an Israeli strike on 13th. 6 other reporters were also injured in the strike. Now, the second incident took place just this past Sunday when an Israeli strike in Gaza's Khan Yunis killed the eldest son of Al Jazeera's Gaza bureau chief, Wael Dadu, who you see on your screens right now. 27-year-old Hamza Al-Dadu was also a journalist and a cameraman for Al Jazeera. In the same incident, freelance journalist Mustafa Thuraya was also killed, and a third journalist, Hazim Rajab, was injured. Now, after the latest deaths, the UN's Rights Office have said that, and I'm going to quote here, it is very concerned by the high death toll of media workers in Gaza. Now, the legal struggles for former US President Donald Trump, they continue to mount. In the latest, Trump appeared in front of an appeals court in Washington, D.C. A panel of 3 judges heard arguments over Trump's claim.
Now, the claim is that as a former president, he should be immune from prosecution. Right after his immunity hearing got over, Trump addressed the reporters outside the court. He said that he did nothing wrong and he is being treated differently than others.
First of all, this was a momentous day. This is the first time.
So you can't have a president without immunity. You have to have, as a president, you have to be able to do your job. But if this didn't work out, if I wasn't given immunity, then other presidents, when we talked about today, President Obama with the drone strikes, which were very bad, they were mistakes, terrible mistakes. You really can't put a president in that position. So I think most people understand it, and we feel very confident that eventually, hopefully at this level, but eventually we win. A president has to have immunity. And the other thing is I did nothing wrong. We did nothing wrong.
During his address, he also talked about how he could prosecute Joe Biden if he returns to the White House.
If I don't get immunity, then crooked Joe Biden doesn't get immunity, and all of the things he's done to allow the border invasion, millions and millions of people coming into our country, many from prisons, jails, mental institutions, insane asylums, many terrorists coming into our country. That's really allowing insurrection.
Trump is facing charges that he conspired to overturn the 2020 elections in the US. Trump has pleaded not guilty to all the charges. That includes conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against the right to vote.
The Republican frontrunner for the 2024 presidency listened quietly to the hour-long arguments, as his lawyer continued to say that former presidents should not be prosecuted for the actions they took while in office.
However, the judges appeared to be skeptical to the argument. A Biden appointee judge even tried to riddle Trump's attorney through his own arguments when she asked whether a president could be criminally prosecuted if they order the assassination of a political rival by special forces. But Trump's attorney insisted that even in this case, the president can only be prosecuted if first impeached and convicted by the U.S. Congress.
Last month, U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan rejected his immunity claim. On the 4th of March, Trump is scheduled to go on trial for federal charges of election subversion. Now for more on this, we earlier spoke to our correspondent Susan Tehrani, who explains how this is projected to play out going forward. Listen to this.
The U.S. Supreme Court on Friday agreed to review a politically explosive decision by Colorado's High Court to keep former President Donald Trump off its primary ballots. The Supreme Court set a swift schedule starting oral arguments on February 8th. They could reach a decision shortly after that, considering the fact that March 5th is Super Tuesday, which is when Colorado and more than a dozen other states start their primaries and caucuses. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden kickstarted his re-election campaign in Pennsylvania on Friday, not by defending his record in the White House during the past few years, but instead criticizing former President Donald Trump, who will likely be his Republican contender in 2024 for being a danger to democracy. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One. While the judges in D.C. indicated deep skepticism of Donald Trump's argument, the former president may actually benefit from this hearing. His team's goal is more about delaying the trial, which is set to start on March 4th, just one day before Super Tuesday, than actually winning the argument. Ultimately, they can also appeal all the way to the Supreme Court, which will also likely delay the matter. The former president has made no secret of his desire to delay these trials, preferably after the 2024 presidential elections, where he may win the White House, be able to pardon himself, or ask his Justice Department to pardon him.
Now, US presidential hopeful Vivek Ramaswamy made a stunning first impression in the Republican presidential debate back in August. However, with just 5% approval ratings, Ramaswamy is now trailing far behind his GOP colleagues.
Well, Ramaswamy is pulling out other tricks to attract eyeballs and gain traction. You know, whatever said and done, he is keeping himself relevant, or at least is being spoken about. One of them is offering free beer. Well, throughout his presidential campaign, Ramaswamy has been promoting what he terms as free speech and free drinks rallies. The multi-millionaire hopes that offering free drinks could rope in first-time voters. As a result, his campaign is drawing large crowds, mostly males.
Now, the free speech, free drinks crowd also show that Ramaswamy is more popular among men than women. And according to a poll conducted by NBC's news show, 50% of male Republican voters did favor Ramaswamy compared to 39% Republican women. The NBC survey also found out that most of the college students weren't aware of who Ramaswamy was in fact. They were just there to get free drinks.
Recently, Ramaswamy halted TV advertising in the crucial final stretch leading up to the first nominating contests in January. Ramaswamy said that he is ditching an ineffective medium to get his presence known to the public. And clearly, beer is the way to go for him. Once a little-known entrepreneur, Ramaswamy seized the spotlight at the first GOP debate in August and struck a chord with some in the Republican base as well. Now, he was second to Donald Trump in the Republican race to the White House. Today, he is at the fourth place with just 5% approval ratings. Ramaswamy has not even qualified for the fourth Republican presidential debate.
Now, this debate is set in Iowa to be held later today with more stringent qualifications. Even fewer candidates are expected to appear on the stage, and this comes as Iowa Republicans will select their choice for presidential nominee and kick off the primary elections on the 15th of January. And with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. Him and I will be back with you right after this short break. When we come back, shocking scenes unfolded in Ecuador after a state of emergency was declared. In the latest, the Commander General of the nation's police has declared the attack on a local TV station as an act of terrorism. We'll get you the latest right after the break.
India is set to vote for a new government in April to May 2024. This year's budget also holds a lot of political significance. We will get you all the details on the other side. Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
From New York, we get you to the sandy shores of Durban, where I'll bring you all the glitz, glam, and happenings from the world of showbiz.
Welcome to the Eras Tour.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
iFinance, which provides funds to micro enterprises, which are the excluded segment in the country. I was brought up in a small town like Bhilai, which gave me the small town grounding. The difficult part is to convince yourself that yes, I can move from a salaried job, which I've done all my life, into something that is business on its own, etc. I know that if I put my head to it and I put my efforts behind it, there's a more than 50% chance of succeeding.
We are one, you and I. Burning in the sun. Rising in the rain. One in celebration. One in pain. One in a tragedy. One for our rights. One in search of hope. One in our fights. One beyond borders. One beyond our race.
This could be one
in the face of adversity. We are one, you and I, and it's our right to know how and why. WION, you are more connected than you know.
I'm Vikram Chandra and join me on WION with 2 weekly shows that will keep you informed. This World, a show that wraps the world's biggest global stories and brings you up close with the biggest newsmakers. This World is coming to you from London, from in front of the White House in Washington, D.C., from one of the most magical sites that I think I have ever been at.
It's completely feasible for India to become one of the world leaders in AI within the next decade or so.
The search for life in the universe is one of the greatest quests of all time.
And a show that aims to bring the India story to the world. We help you understand global developments from an Indian perspective.
We are developing the road infrastructure. In the end of 24, it will be equivalent to the road infrastructure of USA.
We have put up airports which were obliterated from the civil aviation map almost 50 years ago.
जो भी मेरे competitors हैं, उनके साथ हमारा सभी का आपस में अच्छा रिलेशन भी है. हम एक दूसरे को हमेशा पुश करते हैं अंदर खेलते टाइम भी.
I'm Vikram Chandra, and this is WION. World is one, taking India's voice to the world.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. So far on the show, we've gotten you the details from the meet between US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and top Israeli officials. Now, in his toughest remarks yet, Antony Blinken has made it clear that Palestinians should be allowed to return to Gaza. These have been the toughest remarks yet, and there appears to be some sort of a discord between the two. This after the United States has been such a strong backer of Israel.
Absolutely, but they have not backed talks for a ceasefire yet. But now, during his fifth visit to Israel, his fourth West Asian tour, now there seems to be some kind of a discord coming up between the two nations. Blinken has made it clear that Israel must do what it can to stop the civilian deaths in Gaza. But at the same time, no readout of that meeting between Blinken and Netanyahu was released. And Netanyahu was not present during the press conference that Blinken held later. So there does seem to be some kind of miscommunication. There's some kind of a discord which is between there, and we will be getting you the latest as it gets unraveled. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for coming back. This is World DNA. Let's get you started with the headlines we're tracking for you at this hour.
Meeting between US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reportedly tense, highlights deepening disagreement over the ongoing Gaza war.
Lebanon's Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah says it targeted a command base in northern Israel in retaliation to killings of one of its commanders and a Hamas leader.
The hack of the US Securities and Exchange Commission's official account on X renews concerns about the social media platform security since its takeover by billionaire Elon Musk in 2022.
Already reeling under inflation and product scarcity, many Cubans don't know how they will cope with a new 500% surge in the fuel price after a government announces a 5-fold increase.
Brutal winter weather envelops much of the US, with forecasters predicting heavy rain in the east and several feet of snow for parts of the Pacific Northwest.
Chelsea striker Cole Palmer squanders a hat-trick of chances as Hayden Hackney hands Middlesbrough a first-leg advantage in a Carabao Cup semi-final.
Now, shocking scenes unfolded in Ecuador after a state of emergency was declared.
Well, in the latest, the Commander General of the nation's police has declared the attack on a local TV station as an act of terrorism. The incident unfolded during a live broadcast by Ecuadorian television station TC on Tuesday. And this is the moment when the live broadcast was interrupted by armed assailants.
Individuals wearing balaclavas and holding guns made the staff lie down and sit on the floor as shots and yelling were heard.
"13 suspects have been arrested in connection to the attack. They are expected to be handed over to the authorities soon." The authority reported seizing firearms, grenades, explosive material and 2 vehicles during the arrest operation. The commander revealed that these individuals may be linked to an organized crime group known as Los Tigrones.
Intervenimos en primera instancia, hicimos un perímetro externo.
They will be handed over to the competent authority and the report will be related to acts of terrorism. We won't allow that. Allegedly, we believe that they belong to a group known as Los Tigrones. We also see several firearms, 2 long-barreled weapons, 2 handguns, grenades and 2 grenade launchers along with explosive material. 2 vehicles used as transportation by these criminals are under judicial and criminal police authority. who are carrying out the search, and the respective report will be drawn to be handed over to the competent authorities.
Granadas, dos granadas y también un material explosivo.
Now, the arrest comes just hours after Ecuador's president declared the country in a state of internal armed conflict following the attacks. And this incident comes on the heels of the kidnappings of at least 7 police officers and a series of explosions. Responding to a 60-day state of emergency and nighttime curfew declared by the president, gangsters kidnapped police officers, set off explosives in several cities.
Now, in response to this, Peru's government has also declared an emergency along its northern border with Ecuador. Peruvian Prime Minister made the announcement, mentioning that an arbitrary number of army personnel would be sent in to assist police forces as a result of the emergency declaration.
The security crisis follows the prison escape of powerful gang leader and Ecuador's drug lord Jose Adolfo Macias, known as Fito. Fito is the primary accused in the assassination of presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio last August.
Another narco boss of the Los Lobos gang has also escaped. Unrest erupted in prisons across 6 provinces with guards taken hostage. A manhunt is underway for escaped gang leaders, and the president's commitment to restoring peace remains at the forefront. Long seen as a pit stop between Colombian cocaine producers and Peruvian exporters, violence in Ecuador has exploded as the narco trade has flourished in the region. The Biden administration suddenly finds itself embroiled in a rare personal scandal, the mystery surrounding U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's hospitalization.
And of course, the 4-day ICU stay that's raised many eyebrows. According to the Pentagon, the mystery illness for which Austin is being treated for its prostate cancer and at the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Austin had to be hospitalized after suffering complications on New Year's Day.
The statement revealed that the cancer was discovered in early December. On 22nd of December, Austin underwent a minimally invasive surgical procedure called a to treat the cancer. But on 1st of January, Austin was readmitted to the hospital due to complications. Since Austin's days-long disappearance last week, the Pentagon has been facing intense questions. The issue is about transparency. The public wasn't informed until 3 days later of Austin's hospitalization. And even more surprisingly, neither was his boss, U.S. President Joe Biden, informed about his illness for a month. That's a shockingly long time given Austin's job as head of the $800 billion Defense Department of the U.S., one whose command of the U.S. military is second only to the president and who is 6th in line for presidential succession.
Austin's duty as the Defense Secretary requires his immediate availability in case of a national security crisis, including potential nuclear attacks. If he is admitted to the hospital, it affects his ability to perform these duties. Therefore, if the U.S. Defense Secretary is not well and has to be hospitalized, it is imperative that the U.S. President is informed.
He was not informed until last Friday that Secretary Austin was in the hospital. He was not informed until this morning that the root cause of that hospitalization was prostate cancer.
But days after keeping his health scare a secret, Austin acknowledged in a statement released that he could have done a better job ensuring the public was appropriately informed. He commits to do better.
But the entire episode has ignited a firestorm. Democrats as well as Republicans have called for accountability. They have criticized the lapse in traditional protocol. They've demanded an explanation.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump has called on the Biden administration to immediately sack Lloyd Austin. Trump has also accused Austin of improper professional conduct and dereliction of duty. Amid the criticism, the White House rejected Republican calls for Biden to sack Austin. On Monday, a White House official said that Biden is not considering firing Austin.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said, and I'm quoting here, that the president continues to have confidence in Secretary Austin. The number one thing is that we want to see him get well and back at the Pentagon. Now it's 2024 and India's budget session is just a few weeks away. India is set to vote for a new government in April to May 2024. So this year's budget, it holds a lot of political significance.
Well, this year's budget is definitely going to be one which is going to be watched by everyone. But how will this year's budget be different from others? Take a look at this report for more.
India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will present her last budget of the current term on February 1. From the general public to the big billion-dollar businesses, the hopes and aspirations of over 1.4 billion Indians will be at stake. But there's a twist in 2024. The government is unlikely to present a full budget before the national polls in April and May. Here's what Sitharaman said at a recent event. The elections happen during the coming summer, so the budget would just be able to meet with the expenditure until a new government comes to play. She added that people must not expect spectacular announcements in the budget. So, what was the finance minister hinting at? The answer is a vote on account. Vote on account, very often called an interim budget, is a standard practice during an election year. Governments generally do not present a full budget ahead of polls and leave the responsibility to the incoming government. A vote on account powers the government to account for spending until a new government is formed. In this case, the government does not announce new tax proposals, unlike in a full budget. The budget is also cleared by the Lok Sabha, India's lower house, without objections. So the government is all set to follow the parliamentary practice on February 1, ensuring that India's public finances keep running without a break. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
China, once the powerhouse dominating emerging markets, faces a record low influence now.
Well, investors worldwide are re-evaluating their strategies amid China's economic struggles, regulatory uncertainties and a property crisis. Take a look at our next report for more on this.
China's share of MSCI Emerging Markets Index has hit a historic low. The value plummeted to 23.77% as of December 31st, according to Bloomberg calculations. This marks a significant decline from its peak weight of 2020. Now trailing approximately 16 percentage points. Global investors are reducing exposure to Chinese stocks, citing challenges in economic recovery. Regulatory uncertainties and subdued domestic confidence after a property sector crisis. China's diminishing influence reflects not only a decline in market performance, but also substantial capital outflows. The nation's stocks have witnessed a loss of almost $4 trillion in value since 2021, ranking among the world's worst performers. Factors such as President Xi Jinping's Common Prosperity Program, the ultra-strict COVID-0 policy, geopolitical standoffs and a property sector crisis have collectively contributed to a sharp turnaround in market sentiment. While China grapples with extended weakness, other major emerging markets are capitalizing on this shift. India, for instance, has surged to a record 16.7% of the MSCI index, more than double its weight in March 2020. Taiwan, South Korea, Brazil and Saudi Arabia have also seen an increase in their weightings. As China's index weight hits an all-time low, the global investment landscape is witnessing a recalibration, with investors strategically navigating away from China and towards more promising markets. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
And in the world of technology, the world's biggest technology trade fair is underway in Las Vegas. At CES 2024, AI is taking center stage, bringing forward genuine tech breakthroughs that are both bizarre and interesting.
Now, in the healthcare and robotics sector, a Korean firm is changing the game with their ergonomically designed assistive robot called H-Flix. Now, this wearable robot is strapped to the leg, supports walking and could be a game changer for those recovering from injuries or facing mobility challenges.
And this robot is a sports performance enhancement. You can run faster with this device because it automatically detects your running posture and your intent, and it pulls with synchronized real motion, you can push the ground much high impact.
Captivating crowds at CES is a bright orange robot called Mirokai. The robot comes with a unique twist. It engages with the crowd in real time, detecting faces and responding to smiles. The robot's primary role is companionship, with the potential of acting as a social therapy device.
Hello, AFP. I'm so happy to be.
We are about to present the artificial intelligence components that are in Miroka, and she will be able to respond to two types of orders, those from caregivers or from the people who operate the robot, which will be orders like fetch me this, fetch me that, or bring this to such and such a place.
Now imagine looking into a mirror and instantly knowing what could be wrong with your vital bodily functions. This tech has been brought to reality by Neurologic's Magic Mirror. This reflective device analyzes the user's facial blood flow, checking vital signs and estimating various wellness metrics.
The way this whole technology works is we're actually analyzing the facial blood flow patterns underneath your skin. So we use a process called transdermal optical imaging, so RPPG. So we're actually using reflective light to capture your blood flow patterns.
And in sleep tech, there is a wearable device called the Brain Band. The Brain Band combines advanced brain activity tracking with AI-powered features. This gives the user instant personalized feedback to enhance their well-being during sleep.
The AI will automatically personalize the audio content, and we do have the integrated bone conduction speakers above the ear to deliver via vibration through the ears to the users to put them to sleep.
In the landscape of smart tech for babies, a startup has showcased the world's first self-driving smart stroller at CES 2024. And this intelligent stroller goes beyond basics. It automatically engages brakes, detects obstacles on the way, and even puts the baby to sleep with its built-in rocking function.
When the little one is asleep, you can stop and turn on Rock My Baby mode to help them stay asleep. It's feature-packed with white noise playback, storytime playback. It's recognized as humans, pets, scooters, bikes, vehicles that might not be stopping, and gives parents an extra warning so that sleep-deprived parents essentially have driver assist on a daily basis.
Over to cricket now. Australia defeated India by 7 wickets in the third T20I to clinch the series 2-1.
Captain Alyssa Healy and Beth Mooney scored 50s as the Australian side chased down a target of 148 with 8 balls to spare. Put to bat first in the series decider, Shefali Verma and Smriti Mandhana gave India a decent start. Verma went after the bowlers and scored 26 in 16 balls before she was removed by Megan Shutt in the 5th over. Mandhana took on the aggressor's role after her partner's dismissal. She hammered Ashley Gardner for 6 and 4 to close out the power play on 51 for 1. India was 60 for 1 in 7.5 overs before they suffered a mini collapse. 3 wickets in 3 overs saw them struggle to 66 for 4 at the halfway stage. Richa Ghosh then led lower orders fight back. She added 33 runs with Deepti Sharma and 36 with Amanjot Kaur before she was removed for 34. Kaur and Pooja Vastrakar then scored 12 runs off the last over to help India post 147 for 6.
Captain Healy and Beth Mooney gave Australia the perfect start. Healy started slow but picked up the pace from the 4th over as Australia ended the 6th over power play at 54 for no loss. She got a reprieve in the 7th over when the 3rd umpire deemed that catch Rodriguez took at point was not clean after a number of replays. She made the most of the opportunity, scored 34 ball 50 in her 150th T20I, and the partnership was finally broken on 85 when Deepti Sharma trapped the Australian captain. Mooney, however, continued and added 32 runs for Talia McGrath as the visitors sailed towards the target. 2 ball and 2 wickets gave India a glimmer of hope, but in-form Phoebe Litchfield joined Mooney in the middle and the duo eased off the pressure. Mooney remained unbeaten on 52 while Litchfield scored 17, not out as Australia reached the target with 8 balls to spare. And this victory means the The Southern Stars will return home, having followed up their defeat in one-off test with 3-0 ODI series win and a 2-1 victory in the T20Is.
Has done well, exceptionally well, taken superbly well throughout all three formats.
All right, viewers, after sports, let's get you a flavour of all that's happening in the world of entertainment. Take a look at this one.
In his first interview since the assault and harassment conviction, actor Jonathan Majors has expressed his wish to continue working in Hollywood. The actor was asked about deserving a second chance, to which he said he hopes that he gets it, and added that it's ultimately God's plan and God's timing. Last month, a New York jury found the 34-year-old actor guilty of misdemeanor assault charge and harassment violation for a March altercation with his then-girlfriend Grace. The actor was acquitted of a different assault charge and aggravated harassment. Anatomy of a Fall actor Samuel Theiss has been accused of rape. A crew member of the film Jour le Jour that Theiss was directing claims that the actor had sexually assaulted him last July. The victim alleged that the incident took place after a party. According to reports, Theiss was removed from the set following the accusation, but he continued to direct the film remotely. The French actor has denied all the allegations levied against him. He also added that their sexual encounter was consensual. US singer and actor Hailey Bailey revealed that she has given birth to a son. After months of pregnancy speculation, the 23-year-old, who has been romantically linked to American rapper DDG since 2022, posted a photograph of her holding her newborn's hand on social media. The latter wore a bracelet inscribed with "Hello." She captioned the photo saying, and I quote, "Even though we are a few days into the new year, the greatest thing that 2023 could have done for me was bring me my son. Welcome to the world, my hello. The world is desperate to know you," unquote.
And the cast of the new Mean Girls movie turned fangirls at the world premiere in New York. Take a look at this report.
It's been really wonderful to assemble this cast. This cast is so talented, and to be able to take like sort of the juiciest parts of the stage show and bring them back into a cinematic universe, and it's been really a joy.
It's such an iconic movie and such an iconic role and Broadway show, and I was nervous that I wouldn't be up to it, that I wouldn't be able to handle the pressure.
It's such an honor. It's such an honor. I looked up to the character of Damien before I was cast. Before I even knew this movie was being made, Damien was one of my most favorite characters of all time.
And with that, we call it a wrap on this edition of World DNA.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Keep watching Beyond World is One. Come right back after this break for all your global updates.
India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
iFinance, which provides funds to micro enterprises, which are the excluded segment in the country. I was brought up in a small